this episode of the Elite Question Askers. I am Jayson Wells.
I am Mo Williams.
I'm Dietrich Taylor.
Fellas, I don't know how I feel about this. We back on Zoom. I feel like I got spoiled, man, being with you guys and being able to fist bump and hug and just have conversation in person. But I guess this is what we're going to be limited to for right now. But I'm going to start off fist bump moments with exactly that. Not just the encounter. Yeah, I like that, Mo. Not just the encounter of being in the same space, but even the after effects of it. Like, it's been 2 weeks now, and I'm still riding the wave, whether it's being able to golf with DT on Monday as he was in and out of town, or knowing that I'm going to see Mo in 2 days as he's in and out of town. Like, I feel like we went 15, 18 months without being around each other, and now we get to see each other multiple times in multiple weeks. So that would be a fist bump moment. And then my other just quick one is, especially on the backside of it, but just for Mo, not just to meet us, D, but also be able to be around our children. I think that's a huge thing, man. Obviously around the boys in New Orleans, and then
Your lady.
Huh?
Your lady.
And my lady. Okay, cool. Throw that in there. Shout out to Sweet Tea.
Isn't that a TLS colleague of ours as well?
TLSC, yeah, man.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people know that, and she probably downstairs cringing because I don't know if she can hear this, but it's all good. She one of those, keeping on the low. I ain't gonna let everybody know my business type, but I'm gonna let the world know.
Yeah, exactly. She ain't letting her know. We letting it be known.
There it is then. But yeah, Mo, being able for you to be around the boys and T, and then coming home and per your travel difficulties, being able to be around DT and the girls, I just thought that was a cool experience to be able to not just meet you, but how you see the personal sides of Jay Wells. Like, even yesterday, you mentioning walking into my house and seeing a picture of the boys. I just thought that was cool. So that would be a fist bump moment for me.
Go ahead, Mo. All right, I'll go next.
Glad you know.
Yeah, I just know it's coming. I've been on the show a few times.
Yes,
for me, I didn't know we were going that far back, man. That happened like 2 weeks ago. But I mean, if we're gonna do that, then I'm gonna obviously say that as my first. And mine, no offense to you, Jay, was really getting a chance to meet the young ladies that Dietrich Taylor has the biggest opportunity to be a father to. I intentionally texted him and said, enjoy the best job you have in your life. And that's being a dad. And it's just really cool. Mainly, I think I had an attachment even more because I have a daughter. No offense to you, Jay, with your sons. But just seeing just how you move, man, and how much they love you. And I think the presence of a father is just such a powerful, powerful thing. And us just not just being there, not just being dads, but like showing up, and loving them. I really believe that we have the opportunity for them to know what a man is supposed to be. And I take that very, very seriously every single day. I realize how I move, how I treat my wife, how I treat people. This is how she's going to see how men are supposed to be in her life. So credit to you for how you show up, DT, and just being an incredible father and being an example to them. And then my other fist bump moment is, just holding tight to these standards and core values. Obviously, you see mine over my shoulder, but was sharing with DT a book that I've dove into, and I got it from a coach at the Final Four, and it's been literally like a playbook for me. And we've lost out on recruits like recently, and I feel we lost out on them, not because of me, not because of our record, not because of our campus, not because of anything, solely because I've been so clear with the standards that they've seen, all right, this is what I want to be a part of, because we have gotten some, or no, that's just not for me. And that's the environment that I want to create. And that's how I've grown as a coach. So, I mean, just a fist bump moment to me is really holding tight and staying true to that, because it can be very challenging. And as you're in this space of rejection, it's easy to deviate from those at times. But, you know, just holding tight to what I believe in, and wanting to make sure that this program that I've been blessed to shepherd gets to where it's supposed to.
Man, that's powerful. That's powerful. I think, Mo, you said something that may not be necessarily a fist bump moment, but it ought to be maybe a broader topic for us to talk about in terms of dealing with rejection. Us as coaches, us as people, us as fathers, you know, life is who we probably get rejected more than we actually get accepted, and dealing with that, and what that means, and how you respond from that. That just spoke volumes to me when you talked about, you know, the sense of rejection and what you do with it, how you handle it moving forward, whether it's in recruiting, whether it's, you know, all facets of your life, it shows up. So, yeah, Jay, get on that. We should deal with that.
You bet.
Yeah. Man, I got like 3 or 5 fist bump moments, but I'm gonna stick to 3. One of them is obviously, you both have said it, in terms of us being able to be in the same space and share the same space. I think it's totally different with what we're doing today in terms of Zoom, what we normally do, versus it feeling and absorbing the energy of each other. And I appreciate that kind of reciprocal factor, the energy that I want to provide for people, you guys in our group, kind of giving it back to me. I could definitely feel it. Not that I can't feel it on Zoom, but I think it just vibrates a little bit different when you're in person. So that would be my first fist bump moment, to piggyback off of what you guys said. But obviously my first fist bump moment is I've been able to spend an inordinate amount of time with my girls, and touch base with them. And like Mo said, just kind of be a father and be present from a standpoint. Obviously I have 2 phones, but as much as I can when I'm around them, put the phones away, and it you know, their presence, again, energy, it does something for me. It just relaxes me, and it makes me feel like, who cares about anything else or everything else? You know, I'm gonna take these precious moments and spend time with them. And I can appreciate that. And the more and more I'm allowed to do that, the more and more I am going to try to be present in the moment and appreciate their vibe in terms of their love for me, and my love for them, and how much it means. That's huge. But the last fist bump moment, I will say this: the other week, Thursday, I don't know what day it was. Last week, I was in Atlanta. I was going to take the girls to school, so I was up early, and I was checking out of the hotel. Not checking out. I was going out of the gate of the hotel, but my key it wasn't working. So I'm already flustered and kind of already in a hurry. Well, I stick my key up there and it's not working. I stick my key up there, it's not working. I stick my key up there, it's not working. So I push the button, and now I'm getting, you know,
DT-ified. You ready? Yeah.
my asshole ways. And I push the button, and it literally like rings for, I would say, what felt like 2 minutes. It was probably only 30 seconds, but it rung for a long time. And this lady answered the phone, and of course I was pissed and upset, and I was like, hey, you know, my key's not working. I'm trying to get out of the gate and whatever. And she was like, well, what room are you in? So I gave her my room number. She asked me my last name, and she was nice, she was pleasant, and I was being a complete jerk, like a complete asshole, and not saying thank you, not saying please. And at the end of the interaction, when she finally opened the gate, again, I didn't say thank you, but she says, I love you. Totally changed the outlook of the rest of that day. To me, I'm thinking, I'm saying, what an asshole. What a jerk. It's not her fault. It just happened. But my fist bump moment is some lady, her name is Sylvia. She works at the Westin in Buckhead. I'll never probably see her again, and she will never listen to this, but I want to publicly thank her for saying I love you. And I was literally trying to get back to the Westin to find her, and literally I wanted to hug her because she changed the outlook of my whole day. And just made me more present and more appreciative of people in general. So that is definitely a fist bump moment for me. And I'm never gonna stay at the Westin again, but I'm gonna go by there and look for her until I find her and let her know how much of an impact she had on my world that particular day. That's my fist bump moment.
Mo, you got anything to piggyback, add, or share to that specifically? Because I do, but I don't want to go first.
Yeah, I just go back to, I think this was our one-on-one call, Jay, where I shared with you, a conversation I had with my pastor that anything and everything in this world that's conflict driven can be solved by love. And I mean, you name one problem on this earth that can't be solved by love, whether it's war, whether it's frustration, whether it's whatever. Love is the answer, and as you shared, it's simple. It's not easy. But I think, again, like that lady right there at that time, for you to go through that at that time, and that's the power of that statement at that time. And it allowed you to change your whole perspective, your whole movement of your day. So that's cool that you experienced that.
I feel like, yes, we did. We mentioned that. You shared that with me on our one-on-one call. And I want to say that I even mentioned it through that on a previous episode. And D, the wild part about it is nothing about her day changed. Everything about yours did. You know what I'm saying? And so now when you start talking about, like, here you go, the energy stick and energy being contagious, whether it's, paying for the people's food behind me in the Chick-fil-A line or whatever line you in, or just simply saying I love you to somebody who you don't even know, the whole trajectory of your day was changed. Your interactions with other people were changed. Like, that's where this thing gets real fun for somebody like me, because and that similar instance happened not with a I love you, but I think I shared with you guys this time I was walking down the street and just simply normal interaction with a lady, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm hanging in there is what she told me. She, how you doing? I'm amazing. And so we just kept walking, and something told me to turn around. And when I turned around, she had stopped and she was looking at me and she was like, you know what? I'm amazing too. You know what I mean? And you just think about the easy things we say, like, I'm hanging in there. That's one of my word challenges. Like, let's not hang in there. Like, even if it's that, let's stand in there. Damn, let's not hang in there. But it's those little interactions that literally change the trajectory of one person's day. And now I can only imagine the ripple effect of whether it was how you now encounter the girls, because that's where you said you was going, how you encountered people for the rest of, like, it's a ripple effect to that, bro.
No doubt. And I would say, and I hate the phrase, let's go deeper. I don't like that, but to take it one level higher or lower, whatever you want to say. I see Mo frowning because he uses that terminology all the time. But I will say this, like, it's also the impact of blind love. Like, she didn't know what I look like. So that tells you how genuine and how unadulterated her feeling was and what she said. There's a dating show on TV. I think it's called Blind Love or Blind Dating. I don't know. They connect these people. They've never seen each other. And all of a sudden they see each other, but they don't see each other until it's at the altar. And then they try to figure each other out and so on and so forth. But I just want to go back to the blindness of, it's not a fabricated, it's not a fake, it's not a physical thing. When she said it, it came from a space of genuineness. It came from a space of, she didn't care about what I look like or any other thing. She just said it, man. And I there's a level of appreciation and also a level of awareness where it literally stopped me in my tracks, and it just, oh, okay, man, what I was doing and dealing with, damn that, let's focus on this love. Well, let's see where it takes us. Let's ride this wave and see what happens.
Do you actually just help me? Because I never referred to it as blind love, but both of you have heard me. Like that's the anchor to my content, especially team-driven content, this championship culture. Championship culture equals C plus T plus L, the connection, the relationship, the T, which is the trust, and then the L is love. And both of you have heard me define love as a commitment to someone else's well-being. Not family love, which is inherent and supposed to happen, not romantic love, which takes time and to grow into, but I can literally not even see somebody or not even know somebody and say, I love you because of that definition of I'm committed to someone else's well-being, and not committed to what I want for you, but committed to what you want for you. Like you will now start to hear blind love, because that's what it is. I don't need to see you or know you to love you, especially with that type of definition. So I appreciate that, man. Without you even knowing it. Got you an assist.
Like it. Love it.
Ignite question, fellas. Our topic today will be boundaries and how they show up in different forms, professionally, personally, hybrid of both. But Ignite question would be, do you have boundaries set up in your life? That's an alley-oop. Like, however you want to go. And Mo, I expect for this one to be a little different, just because I know like this is your one word. But yeah, either one of you, do you have boundaries set up in your life? And if you do, give us just, one or two examples of what they may look like.
I'll jump in really quick because I'd love to hear Mo talk about boundaries. And I think if you're throwing an alley-oop, Jay, I think Mo will slam it home. So I'm going to go on the intermediate.
Oh, can you still dunk?
Who?
Mo.
Oh, yeah, Mo can.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Don't be asking me, because I want, we'll hurt this the thought of doing that actually hurt. So the word boundaries, it's funny or not funny, but it's interesting that you brought it up last week in terms of being able to establish those things. And I think innately, yes, you do have boundaries, but now that it's on my mind, I want to be able to aggressively be aware of establishing boundaries, because I think they're needed for all the purposes and all the reasons that Mo is going to give, and I'm not going to steal his joy, but I think they're needed. I think they're important. I think they're just what they are. They're fences to be able to guard you from other people and be able to guard other people from you. And so those boundaries, that word for me, it just takes me into a number of different places, from a financial standpoint, from a personal standpoint, from a relationship standpoint, to with my kid's mom standpoint. There's all types of things that need to be established, that may have been established because you didn't directly establish boundaries, if that makes sense. They kind of just happenstance, as opposed to they're intentional. And there goes that word intentionality behind it. But I've blundered enough. I love what Mo says about this, and I'm gonna shut up. How about that?
Mo Will?
And you guys are putting a lot on this. I have to say something profound. But just trying to make sure I'm answering your question. You're asking boundaries, do we have them? What does it look like, correct?
Yeah, do you have them? Or even, again, like knowing that's your word, DT threw you another lob. I feel like we the Harlem Globetrotters right now with the double lob, or just at least a real athletic team. But yeah, like this word specifically hits a little different for you, just because that's your one word. So yeah, just kind of your relationship with that word and what that looked like in your life.
Sure. Yeah, I think for me, you guys have said it. It's my word of the year, and I think why I even selected that is because, being honest, vulnerable, whatever word you want to use, I've been a people pleaser. I still am. I think there's a positive of being a servant, wanting to serve others, but a negative of service is wanting to please others. And I think people use the word serve. I love to serve, but they don't understand what that word really means. It's easy to be a servant if you're doing things and you hear the word thank you. I appreciate it. That means a lot to me. But can you be a servant when you're treated like a servant? So you don't hear those thank yous. You don't hear the acknowledgement of your value. That's when you're truly a servant. And I think for me, it's like why I came up with that word is because I kept getting tired of the enemy running the same play against me and scoring every single time. I just kept losing every single time. And I think once you select a word or understand where you're getting attacked or challenged, then you have to arm yourself with the right things to feed your spirit. So one thing, obviously, you guys know I'm a spiritual person, arming myself with the word in a more intentional way. And then the next one, if you're a reader, I know you guys are readers, but there's a great book that I've finished. It's called Set Boundaries and Find Peace. Set Boundaries, Find Peace by looking at it from far. Her name is Nedra Glover. Can't even say her last name. It's kind of far. But just a great book. I think what I pull from that the most is setting your day. Like set your day. Like whatever is going to happen in your day is going to happen, but you have to set your day. And I think we all have this superpower of choice that we don't even realize that we have. Like you have a choice of the language you use. You have a choice of how you're going to respond to things. You have a choice on how you're going to get out of that bed. And I think that's the first thing with the boundaries is, are you going to activate your superpower of choice? And then that next one is like seeking, so as you've activated that superpower of choice, like what are you seeking throughout that day? Are you seeking validation from others, or are you truly seeking what you are about? And you can't seek if you don't know. You can't seek if you can't see it. So Jay, I think you do a very powerful way if anybody first meets with you, whether it's a team or one-on-one, with your vision and your mission statement. That's really what that is. You're teaching people how to seek what's important to them. And then that last one I would say, which is obviously what a boundary is blocking. Like what do you need to block from your space that could steal your joy? Like you guys have heard me say the fence analogy. Like you can't poop in my yard if I have a fence up. And it's the same thing with your minds. Like what do you allow in your life that is not fenced off? Like whether it's a comment, whether it's a certain person, whether it's a player, like you have to understand as you activate different spaces in your day, that fence needs to really be up, activated, and then to that person, if that is a person that has that opportunity to do that, like, do they know like, hey, I'm putting the fence up, I'm going to block you from that space. And I think that's the challenge you have with boundaries is sometimes they're not communicated, which if they're not, that could be a challenge as well too. So I would say, man, that's obviously what I pulled. That's my journey where I'm going on. The challenge every day is wanting to please others. But I think that's how I navigate it. That's my playbook every single day. And I try to follow it. And kind of what I was sharing with you guys, it's those plays that I kept continuing to lose by every game. Those aren't the ones that's being ran against me as frequently as they used to be.
Mo, if I'm getting you to summarize that, I know the last one was blocking. The first one activate your superpower. Like if you could give us those three like verbs, can you just bring that home?
Yeah, choice, seek, block.
Yeah,
so
choice. Yeah.
What are you seeking? And then obviously, what spaces do I need to block things off?
Yeah. Yeah. Dang, that's powerful.
Question, Mo, like is a part of like blocking, is that communicating those boundaries, like not letting people poop in your yard, so to speak? I like that analogy because it's so visual. But like I think you have to communicate those boundaries to people. And my question would be like, of those three words, is there communication built in? Or would that be a fourth word?
I would say the first two are yourself. So you have to know yourself, know what you need to do before you block anything, right? So you got to identify, what am I keeping those people away from? Because they're not going to go into a yard if it ain't nothing in it. So you got a very nice yard. You got the nicest grill in there. You got the little fire pit. You got to identify what's in there first. But I would say like what this looks like is there are people in our lives that can trigger us to literally go from 0 to 100, like Drake said, real quick. So if that is a situation, or if that type of communication with that person can get to that level before we even communicate, the power of choice is, hey, like I have an ability to not let that person or what their words are affect me. But as we start this conversation, just saying like, hey, you know, I'm not into arguing with you. Like that's a boundary. Like as soon as, before we even start, I just want to say this. I don't want to argue with you. So if that's where you want to go, I'm not going there with you. You know, this is a communication that I'm trying to create that's solution based. You just created a fence. You just created a direction of where you want to go, and you just establish your power of choice.
It's funny you asked that, D, because I was going to actually come back to that communication piece towards the end, because it is such a huge part of this deal. Is if I'm process driven, again, I think all of us are process driven, not necessarily outcome driven. So whether it's per our occupation or sport or title or whatever, like we all enjoy the process. And if I'm looking at this from a process standpoint, I think one of the first parts about that process is that awareness. It's that identification of myself. I need to identify what my boundaries are, what's in my yard, like what am I fencing off? You might not fence off everything. You might be able to get to this, but you can't get to that. You know what I mean? Like so I agree. And then I feel like whether it's the second part but I do feel like a part after I've identified that through my awareness of myself is 100% the communication of those. And I think that is a huge obstacle for most of us, especially men. I'm just going to call it being a man, and from my own experience, because now you may have identified them, but your inability to communicate them still leaves ambiguity, still leaves, you know, oh man, I ain't really know that fence was there. Or I saw the fence, but I didn't think it was for me. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a lot that goes into that. And so your ability to be able to communicate those things. And again, I'm speaking for myself. When I think about areas where I could have communicated differently, a lot of it was based on my experience and the story that I was telling myself per the person or per the situation. So per the person, oh man, she gonna react this way anyway, because that's the way she always reacts. So what's the use of me communicating that? Or per the situation, I've been in this before, whether it was with a specific person or not, and this is how it went. So, and now I'm making these present and future decisions based on past, which is fair, which is who we are as human beings. And I don't know if that necessarily puts us and sets us up for a place of growth and moving forward, because if I'm making present decisions on past experiences, it doesn't leave that other person or those other people much opportunity for them to be able to grow too. Message. So I think that all ties into this piece of awareness of self, identifying what these boundaries are, how they show up in my life, and now communicating them. And like you said, it goes back to this, and I feel like we say this often, because we talk so often. When I do this, it's not at a disrespect to you, whether that you is a singular or a plural. When I do this, it's not at a disrespect to you, it's at the ultimate respect of myself. Like I respect myself enough to say, yeah, we ain't gonna do that. You know, I can't keep exchanging. This is me talking for me. I can't keep exchanging an hour of my life for one person with no value, for lack of a better word, brought to that. And I'm not saying that interaction isn't valuable, but what I'm saying is that's an hour of my life. So rather than having one person for 1 hour, let's get 4 people for 1 hour. So now instead of me exchanging 4 hours of my life, I'm exchanging 1 hour of my life, but I'm still having that impact on more people. That's a boundary. So there's a couple different ways I wanted to mention it. D, you mentioned financially. I saw a video from Oprah and she spoke about finances. Obviously, her finances are very public and and of a large quantity. So she said, you know, for her, it's easy when you broke to say, somebody say, let me get $500 and say, I ain't got it. Like, it's easy. Oprah can't say that. Oprah can't say I ain't got it because everybody knows she got it. So an important part for her was identifying that boundary of, yeah, I ain't gonna be able to do that right now. I shared with you guys on Sunday when we talked about this on the men's call, like my mom's deal with homeless people or people that are having challenges, you know, at this current time about asking. Her response is not, I don't have it. Her response is, I didn't set anything aside for that. That's a boundary. And I think it keeps you more in that place of even just being honest. So I rambled enough. What you got?
I just like this is the book here. So obviously you guys can see that, but no, I mean it talks about that, and I think I love what you said about, you know, it being about yourself. You know, like I'm setting that boundary, you know, not to offend you, but for myself. You know, in this book, one of the things I actually highlighted that I loved the most was, you know, the boundary she talked about. She said, people treat you according to your boundaries. And I think, you know, again, man, it all starts with that choice and setting your day and seeking, like, you know, your relationships will change when people see that you've changed. Like, it's impossible to argue with somebody that's not trying to argue back with you. That's why I'm terrible to argue with, because I'll just tell you I love you or great job or, you know, are you done? Because I'm not going to argue. All right, good job. Thank you for getting that out. So like, if I'm not giving you an avenue to fight back, we're not going to fight.
Bro, what part of that has or can potentially come off as sarcastic and dismissive though too? Like, I can only imagine that even for people who know you best, like you talk, like I just heard you say, great job with that. Like, like what part of that though?
Well, I think it all goes to the intentions. So like start like where I said before, I'm not trying to argue. I want to create a solution-driven conversation. So if you are trying to go down that street, that's fine. I'm just not going down there with you. So it might come off as like sarcasm or you're trying to make it worse, when in reality, all I'm trying to do is really give you a space to get out your emotions. But I'm not going there with you because I don't feel the same way.
Heard.
Yeah. Blasted. Jay, you said you were talking to yourself, but I'm going to include me in your comments. Like you were talking directly to me because, or speaking for me, because I struggle with communicating efficiently with difficult situations that are driven by emotions, as opposed to allowing your emotions to be your passenger. Which is most said it best, they're driven by emotions. And I can think of two instances that I think of those things. One is a professional situation and one is a personal situation. And among outside of those things, I have no problem communicating with everything, in other areas of my life. But I would say those two situations, they constitute a lot of my inability to effectively communicate, because I think it comes from, it's emotional for me, it's emotional for the other person. And again, at the end of the conversation, I don't feel like we walk away with a solution to whatever the situation is. So yeah, there's just so much from a communication standpoint. Yeah.
I think my question would be, because this is a powerful question, and this is actually one of the ones that I had towards the end, and I think it can just be infused in different parts of it. So when you speak about you know, being a decent communicator, pretty good communicator in other areas of your life, but then you think about, again, either yeah, okay, cool. Because that is a judgment, especially a self-imposed judgment. Like, I think I'm a good communicator. Well, hell, what do everybody else say? So that's fair. And still related to whether it's a person or whether it's a situation, how much of your lack of communication is based on the story that you're telling yourself of communication has gone this way in the past. So why would I communicate? Or like, because again, bro, I have done that specifically with past relationships, romantic relationships, my ex-wife specifically of, man, I ain't gonna even have this conversation because I know how you're gonna respond to it. Do you? You know, maybe that's the time where she doesn't respond how she typically responded, or you know, she sees it, and I think there's so much of it. There's actually some tools that I'm gonna throw in real quick, and we can discuss these, but tools of, I call it PNC: pause, notice, choose. So in this moment, I get to pause, literally stop. I know we joke around with pause all the time, but like literally stop. And in that moment of pause, I just get to breathe. I get to assess. I get to just stop. Allowing, it's a science. When you are emotionally flooded, your logic gets pushed out the window. It's why I'm speaking for myself, and I'm sure I can speak for y'all too, but it's why 10, 15 minutes later, after a challenging conversation or argument or whatever it is, you think to yourself, damn, I wish I would have said that. Because literally your emotion pushes your logic out of the window. So that's the pause. That's what the pause allows you to do. And then the end is notice. Now that I've taken this pause and I'm taking this stop, noticing my emotions. Where are they coming from? Are they coming from a previous situation? Are they coming from a story that I'm telling myself? Are they coming from, is it even related to this person in front of me? Or is it some shit that happened years ago or that I haven't dealt with? Like, that's what the notice is. I've stopped, and now I get to notice where I'm at and where these emotions are coming from. And now the last part is now this choice. And as Mo mentioned earlier, and it's funny because this is kind of becoming the anchor of what I speak most about. I feel like people so underestimate the power of our own personal choice. I get to choose. Yes, there's a definition of ignorance where I don't know, but after I know, after I know, it's a matter of me saying, do I do this? And that is a power of choice. And so again, that's a high level of the introduction of some tools that I use with people that I work with, my explorers, my teams, whatever. But that process has been game changing for me. Pause, notice, and now I get to choose what behavior I make from there.
Let me ask you a question. Do you so say you're having one of those challenging conversations. Do you pause, notice, and choose as the conversation is going on, like in the moment, or do you wait until there is a pause in the conversation, or is it a real-time thing?
Sure.
Can it be a real-time, like, yeah, I'm thinking about PNC, but I'm having a challenging conversation with this person who we don't share the same perspective, and we're arguing about that.
Sure. Mo, I saw you nodding. Go ahead.
I just want to take it first. I think it goes back to, I'm going to use this analogy.
Pause, by the way.
And then I'm going to,
Dang, at some point, can you seriously be mature? Like, we're trying to have a
no, man, this dude needs to
mature conversation.
That is what keeps this, that is what makes our platform the shit. Man, is our ability to be able to dip and dodge out of it. Mo, please continue.
Yeah, I wish I had pause him in this top left square of my computer. Shut the fuck up.
On a serious note, like from an analogy standpoint, like I think about this roller coaster, right? Like the roller coaster, in a sense of it's a thrilling ride, but you don't know where it's gonna end. You ain't gonna get on that ride. you're going to get on the one where you see the thrill, but you know it ends this way right here. And I go back to those conversations, D, like, what are you, if you argue, where does it end? Like, what is it going to end? I said my piece, he or she said her piece, but we're still back to where we started, except now we're more emotionally high than we were before. Where I think it goes back to like our goal in life, in my opinion, this is my opinion, my take. I think what we're constantly seeking in our life is peace. It's peace. You know, peace to me is while chaos is going around, I'm in this inner space that I can't be touched. I can't be touched. I have the things around me that fulfill me, that make me happy, that bring me joy. Message. And I think some people, where they get wrong is they think it's a job, they think it's a person, they think it's a location, which I'd be very careful with those because I think those things are not built for that. But I think ultimately it's peace. So if we're having these conflict-driven conversations, make peace be the end goal, not winning. So that's where I go back to, Jay, where you were saying it might be sarcastic. Like, I'm not trying to be. I created a boundary where I said before this even started, I don't want to fight with you. So if you feel that way towards me, this is a space where you can swing, but I'm not swinging back at you. Yeah, I'm going to swing my way, which is I'm protecting my peace. And it's a choice on whether I let you now trigger my emotions and now get heightened to the way that you are. That's my response to that. I think you gave something practical, and that's how you do it. Yeah, you know, especially that pause thing.
D, I see your response. Yeah, it's simple but not easy. I know
it's not, but I think, and it's not. And I'm speaking from me. I'm not speaking for the people that will listen to this or see this. Damn them. I love them, but damn them. Right now, I'm talking about me and my situation. Like, I think Mo said something that was super, super important that may provide or may constitute message.
Yeah.
He said that I'm not trying to win the argument or the situation. I'm trying to find peace.
Sure.
Amongst the relationship. And man, that's powerful to me from a standpoint. I don't necessarily approach those conversations as I want to win, but I find myself within the conversation. Consciously. Yeah, consciously. It's not a winning deal. It's not about, it's actually, hey man, we got a situation that we need to talk about. Let's try to be productive. Let's try to find a solution. But within the conversation, I find myself trying to win. I'm driven by, hey man, that's my perspective. I'm fighting for it. I want my perspective to prevail in this conversation. So when you walk away, you share the same perspective. And that's, to me, that's contradictory of what I believe, but it's not necessarily contradictory in terms of the way that I've acted.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Makes all the sense in the world. And even what you just said, I want you to walk away and see what I believe, or, you know, see what's important or valuable to me. And this brings up more like, man, I appreciate this conversation because I feel like this is now opening up avenues in other areas that we are involved in. But there's this difference between acceptance and agreement. Like, I don't have to agree with you to accept. You know, I know you spoke about a couple situations based on a couple episodes ago when we talked about the Will Smith, Chris Rock incident and how that has surfaced in your life based on your opinion with that. Okay, cool. I don't need you to agree with that. But can we get to a point where you can accept that just as much as I can accept? And bro, you talk about love. I think that, again, that ties into the definition of love that is, I'm committed to someone else's well-being. Someone else's well-being is me accepting that their views may be different from mine based on their experience or based on however they think. And if we could take that acceptance and agreement and just input it, inject it into different areas of life, whether it's sexuality or whether it's political affiliation or whether it's whatever, who you pray to, like all of it. Okay, cool. I don't have to agree with that, but I can accept it. But again, bro, at the ultimate, I feel like that now comes down to a power of choice that most people don't want to go, because now if I'm saying that I accept it without agreeing with it, man, that I don't get to rant and rave and pitch a bitch. It is. You ain't never heard that phrase, Mo? Oh yeah.
You're too young for that, Mike.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta realize we got a young buck.
Let's go, because man, we talk about time flying. Let's go from a from a professional standpoint, just to touch on it, because I know there are coaches who hear this, men who hear this, people who hear this, because I feel like the more we get into these topics, the less and less we can say man, because women are challenged with the same things from a gender standpoint. But from a professional standpoint, you guys are both in this coaching space. D, we're recording this morning because you had an impromptu recruiting call last night. Can you, not on an individual basis, but can you get to a point where you are now identifying and communicating boundaries that say, I don't take recruiting calls after such and such a time? And I know that's a hell of a question to ask, and I don't even necessarily mean it specific to recruiting calls, but you guys know my phone goes on do not disturb at 9 o'clock every night. The people who have access to me after 9 o'clock, it's because I've allowed them in the gate. And then there's majority of people who don't. How important, or have you identified boundaries within your professional space of how you show up?
Yeah, I would say no. I haven't done a good job of providing those boundaries, and I need to do a better job if I want to be a little more efficient with me servicing me, so that I can be what I need to be for other people. Like the phone call last night, in terms of just like, I probably shouldn't have taken it. But I feel like if I didn't take it, there's another coach somewhere who probably will. And all of a sudden you lose that opportunity to have that conversation with those kids or those parents or whatever the case may be. But in the same token, I do believe this, like you just said it, like your phone goes on silent. But I think everybody that knows you knows that your phone goes on silent at a certain time. And you, like, I look, because I'm on the West Coast, so I'm 3 hours behind you guys. And I'll say, dang, it's 9 o'clock back there or 10 o'clock back there, only 7 or 6. Jay probably is not going to respond. I'm going to send him this knowing that he probably is not going to respond, but I'm going to send it anyway because I need to brain dump. And then there are times where you might respond. But I think, no, I haven't done a good enough job. And I would say that coaches in general don't do a good enough job of setting those boundaries. But I think one thing that COVID has taught us, we can still find a way to be efficient, find a way to be effective by setting those boundaries. Like, we couldn't go out like we normally do. So we had to do all of our recruiting on Zoom calls such as this. And for 2 years, basically, we didn't go see kids. Kids didn't come see campus. So that in itself is a level of a boundary that I would consider maybe as coaches, because as coaches, we can provide ourselves with a level of balance through setting those boundaries. But nah, I don't. Easier said than done. Simple, yeah, but it ain't easy.
Yeah. Plug. That's happening. Mo, what you got?
No, I relate to what he said. And I would honestly, I'm going to say this to you, DT. Like, I actually think you do a better job setting those boundaries now than you did when we first met. You know, like I think there are people that I know that have texted you and called you, and I don't feel it's an intentional, like, I'm not trying to talk to you, like, screw you. I'm not done with doing what I need to do, so I can't even get to answering what you even want to know anyways, because I need to do what I'm doing now. I think a boundary you created as well is you could easily be back in California right now. Like, you created a boundary on, I need to do this or be in this space in order for me to operate effectively when I get back there. So just being your teammate, I would say that you set them better than I think you do. And I relate to what you said. solely because, Jay, I think if we don't necessarily, like if you're shutting your phone off in a certain time of the day doing this, I believe he's right. Like you are going to miss out on players. You are going to miss out on things. Like this is you have to, at least in my space, maybe he feels the same way. Like you have to outwork people. And sometimes that is going to be taking the call at 10 o'clock, even though I don't want to. That might be, hey, this call just came up and I know I'm here, so I got to pull away. It might be that. I think where the boundaries come going forward is to that person, to your players, to whoever you work for. During this time, like I'm unavailable. When I'm in this space, I'm unavailable. But I think when it comes to recruiting, like they're really, you can't operate that way. It is, I mean, there's kids that I found out we got involved with at 11 p.m. at night, and I'm like, all right, well, we got to put something together because I got to be prepared to get on a Zoom call with that kid at 9 a.m. So let's put all these things together so we're organized. I think that's just the nature of what we do. It's competitive, and it is spur of the moment where I think the boundaries come, at least for me, is when I'm with my family, when I'm in this space, when I'm doing this, I'm not going to answer that. Or I'm going to tell my players or whoever I can as best as I can that this space is for them. And at this time, I need to be present here as best as I can.
Yeah. Jay, real quick, I just wanted to give it another example of a high major coach. Like I heard him speak to this boundary deal. And his deal was when he leaves the office, he tells his staff, he tells his recruits, he tells his players, hey, when I leave the office, the first 3 hours of me leaving the office, they're mine. They belong to me. And they're dedicated to my family. For dinner, putting the kids to bed, whatever. My wife needs so-and-so, whatever. The first 3 hours, his whole deal is don't call me or don't expect a response because I'm devoting that time with my family. And I've always appreciated that, like the ability to be able to do that. But like Mo said, somebody calls during that time and it's a recruit that you think you can't get or whatever the case may be. They tug at those disciplinary boundaries that you've set. Are you disciplined enough to say, whew, man, that's, eesh. You know what I mean? Like totally different.
I feel like this is and this might even be, fellas, our first part 2 or 2-part episode. Like I feel like we can definitely revisit different parts of this. And D, as Mo was sharing, as you shared, then Mo, and then back to you. What's coming to mind as I start the money moment for this episode for me is it was communicated, and I just want to bring some actual directness to this statement. D, I think you do a good job of identifying and setting and communicating boundaries in certain areas because you made it very clear when you're with the girls, these phones get put away. So you've identified this boundary. And you've communicated this boundary. Like you just said, I know you're on the West Coast, you're 3 hours behind. I know Jay's phone goes on do not disturb at 9 o'clock, and I'm not necessarily expecting a response when I do this. Why? Because I have identified and communicated that boundary. Lastly, you spoke about the coach. First 3 hours when I leave this office, that's my me time. And more importantly, that's my family time. So I think the big thing about it, yes, simple and not easy, but it's the identification and the communication of these boundaries. And I love the way you worded it at the end when you said, do you have the discipline to stick to it? Do you have the discipline to say, this ain't that? And lastly, as I shut up for this one, there's a book that I read, actually one of the first books that I started reading when I got into reading 6-7 years ago, but Timothy Ferriss, the 4-Hour Work Week. And he spoke about how you get to this point. He specifically only responds to emails 1 day a week at a certain time. And immediately we start thinking, oh man, I would check my email and it would be flooded with the previous 6 days and all of this stuff. And he said what he really quickly realized was, one, people understood the boundaries. And because they understood the boundaries too, they found them getting less emails about, let's just call it bullshit. Like people were only emailing him about important stuff. You're not getting the bullshit email that really could have been a text message or whatever. Like I'm only emailing, and so I've identified these boundaries. I'm aware of myself. I've communicated these boundaries, and now people know it ain't just you. People know, oh man, if I hit Jay after 9, why? Because I communicated. So I think it just goes back to like the power of us, the power of choice.
No doubt. And I think just adding one more thing on this, like coaching is not, there is no clocking out. We clock in physically to wherever we work, but there is no clocking out. And I think there's just time periods where it is very challenging to do that because some of the work that's needed might be after a desired hour that you want. But I think, it's just communicating as best as you can on what's important to you. And I think what you guys have shared, like identifying as best as you can to those people. Like my staff knows once I leave here within 4 to about 6:30, I'm not going to answer you. That doesn't mean I won't see it, but the presence that I need to give at home is much more important, and they're aware of that. So they know like about 7 o'clock, around 7 is when baby's down, and that's when I'll text you back or get right back to you.
I wish there was a way to create, like you can do on your emails. You can read them and then mark them that you've read them, obviously, but you can mark them unread so you can go back to them. I wish there was a way that you could do that with text messages. Like you can read the text and then you can go back and say, oh, I didn't respond to this person. Man, that would make life so much easier for me.
Rather than even having that large number of, you got 71 unread messages, which can get intimidating.
Yeah.
Or you open it and forget about it, and next thing you know, it's 4 days later.
And that's what I do. That's what I do. Like I'll open it, I'll read it, I respond in my mind.
Yeah.
And don't respond physically. I respond in my mind, but I think I responded. And then 3 days or 4 days later, I realized, oh, I didn't respond physically.
Yeah. Yeah. Fellas, I think this is, again, this may be one, and we can talk about it offline, but I feel like this is one that we revisit because I feel like there are areas that we can get even more specific, and from a personal and a professional standpoint, just continue to do what we've done now for the majority of the season of this podcast, which is, I feel like we do a tremendous job of representing different demographics, whether it's fathers, whether it's coaches, whether it's men, whether it's Black men, whether it's different parts of relationships. I feel like we show up in a lot of different ways that speak for a plethora of demographics. Like I feel like we can touch this again. I don't know whether it's next time or just sometime in the future, but the people need to hear this conversation. People need to hear this conversation because I think whether it's an OIC moment of awareness for them or a Me Too moment of, damn, they going through it just like I am. Like, I think all of those things give us an opportunity to point back to awareness. So we're going to wrap for now. I know we got golf on the agenda. I got a workshop. Mo got to go be a phenomenal coach like he is. I appreciate you guys, man. I love y'all.
Love you too, man. I holla.
Mo, I don't know whether you're on mute or we just can't hear you, but
Allah.
Oh, there it is. All right, peace.